Hey guys, welcome to Joe's Java Studio, and today we'll be covering how to implement multiple data sources with Spring Data JDBC. So today we won't be using anything new. We'll be importing from the Spring Data JDBC as we always have been. And then instead of Docker Compose, today we'll be using H2, which is an in-memory database that's auto-configured when you run your Spring app. So you click Generate or Explore, you'll see H2 JDBC. That's all you need. So let's dive straight into the code. So previously we've been referring to our Spring data source by using the configuration spring.datasource. But if you do that, you can only configure one data source, and Spring will pick this up from the properties file. But if you want to embed more data sources, then you would have to switch this up. And you would also have to inject different beans for each of those data sources. So we'll dive into how to do that. So in your application properties file, you can group each data source by whatever prefix you choose. So today we'll be covering, as you can see here, blog and subscriber tables. So here, let's just do data source.blog.url equals, actually let me just copy everything over. There you go. So here we have a H2 database URL named blog, and that's the name of the table, and that'll be the username and password. All the blog table related data source properties will be prefixed by datasource.blog, and you can change this, you can name it whatever you want. For our subscriber table, we'll be doing the similar thing. We'll name the property data source.subscriber. Okay. So, and actually, let's take a look at the schema files, what each table consists of. So blog has ID, title, content. Each of these are strings. So let's go ahead and make the blog record for our entity type. And we can just do string ID, string title, string content. Alright, same for subscriber. We have ID and name. Both of these are strings. So same thing. Subscriber, record. I have to disable that. String ID, string name. That should be it. Alright. So now if you run this application, no data source will be picked up because the default property for Spring data sources are spring.datasource. So we have to inject beans that'll pick up these custom data sources. So we can make a new class called data source configuration. All right, there you go. So the first thing is we need to pick up these properties. So we can do that by adding a bean of configuration properties. And the prefix for this will be datasource.blog. Okay, so data source.blog. These are solely for the blog table. So data source properties will be the type of the bean. Right. And this will return new data source properties. It'll automatically pick up the properties starting with data source.blog. And let's just cover everything for blog, and then we'll do the same for subscriber. So from this, we can build our data source. So another bean of type data source and blog data source will be the name of the bean. And it'll take data source properties, blog data source properties. All right, let's import that class. And then we can just use the data source builder. Then from here, we can do URL will be blog data source properties. We'll determine the URL from that. We need two more things, which are the username. And then the same for the password. All right. No wonder. Okay, there you go. So we've created a data source, custom data source from these properties that we have down here. One more thing we need to do. For JDBC, you need to specify the schema of the tables, which is in the block schema. The SQL file, it has an ID, title, and content. So we'll configure that with our data source. So the bean type will be data source script, database initializer. So this will be run when the block data source will be initialized. Initializer, and this will take a block data source called block data source. All right. And then we'll create a new instance of database initializer settings, and then we'll just set the schema of that. And then the schema is class path block schema.sql. There you go. Okay. And then we'll just return a data source script database initializer with those settings passed in. Settings. Oops. All right. So how do you create a client from this data source? So in main, we'll create a new bean, a JDBC client bean. So it will be JDBC client. Oops. JDBC client, blog client, data source will be called blog data source again. And we're going to return a JDBC client from this data source. So it'll be JDBC client dot create, and then we'll pass in the blog data source. All right, that's all we need. We'll create an application runner bean just to test this out. We'll just print what is in the table for simplicity and testing purposes. We'll just select all rows from the blog. Query into blog, the type of blog. So the result will be queried and mapped to the blog record. And then we'll just list it. Yeah. All right, let's test it out. Oops, yeah, I need to run the Spring application instead of printing hello world. So the Spring application dot run this class and then args. There you go. So now it's printing a blog of ID1, title hello world, content is hello world. In the schema file, we did insert this blog, so it looks like it's able to connect to this H2 database table. So let's set up the same for the subscriber table. I'm just going to copy paste this whole thing and then replace it with every blog with subscriber. The properties will be DataSource.subscriber. Data source will also be named subscriber. The schema for this is subscriber schema.file. That is it. Hopefully I replace every instance of blog with subscriber, no errors. So let's create the JDBC client for subscribers. Subscriber data source. Should have just done that earlier. There you go. Oops. There you go. So here we'll also do the same thing. We'll print out all rows from subscriber clients. We'll inject it through constructor injection first. Gosh. SQL select all from subscriber, map that to the subscriber class, and then we'll just turn that into a list. There you go. Let's test it out. So this blog output is from the blog client, and subscriber is also from the respective subscriber data source. So in the schema file, we're creating a subscriber with ID 1, name is Joe, and same thing here. So that's how you configure multiple data sources in Spring. You have to group the URL, username, password fields into the same prefix, and you can configure the properties by specifying the prefix and then building the data source from there, mapping the respective data source with the respective schema files, and then creating the JDBC client from the data source that you created from those properties. That is it. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.